Hey, I'd like to welcome you to first in our series of how to price t-shirts. I owned this t-shirt screen printing business for quite a while, and one of the things I never could figure out on the onset and find information on was how to properly price. Over the years, we've learned how to do that quite well and stuff, and even though I'm retired from that, I develop software now, so I'm here to teach you how to price t-shirts. So enjoy. Thank you.
Welcome to part one of how to price t-shirts, and it's being brought to you by ShopCal Software. In this episode, we're going to cover the following things. First thing is understanding the difference between markup and margin. This is something that a lot of people don't understand and get them confused. They're very different. We're also going to cover the basic formula for calculating your sale price based on using margin. And we're also going to cover the basic formula for calculating sale price using markup. And then we're going to go over setting up just a quick and dirty spreadsheet to do the math. What we are not going to cover in this episode, but I will be covering in future episodes, is how to figure your print charges. The common question, how much should I charge? And how to calculate shop expenses to use in pricing. There's probably going to be some other things that we're going to be covering, but I just want to keep it to these two little items right here that we're not going to cover in this episode, and we'll be covering in some future episodes. Margin. Margin is normally called profit margin. It is defined as the percentage of the selling price that is turned into profit. Problem is, if you go search the web, all the examples that you're typically going to run into, unless you're extremely lucky, are how to calculate the profit margin based off the selling price and the cost. In other words, you know how much the item cost you, and you know how much you want to sell it for, and so we're going to calculate how much profit margin we're going to get out of that. In the t-shirt business, along with some other businesses, we need to work this a different way. We need to say, well, we know how much the item cost us, and the cost would be the cost of the shirt, garment, and the cost of all the decorating that went on it, and any other associated cost that went to it. So we have the cost of the product itself. What we want to be able to do is come up with a selling price. And what do we need to sell that for to make money? And using the margin, we want to say we want to make a certain amount of margin. So I know my cost and I know how much profit margin I want to make off of it. How do I come up with a selling price? These typical formula examples, they are out on the web, but they're extremely hard to find. And so we're going to go over that in here, and it's really not that complicated. It's just something that's not out there available for you to find. The formula to calculate the selling price is based on your cost to the product, the item, and our desired profit margin. Margin and the formula. The simple margin is the cost of the product divided by 1 minus the margin equals the selling price. So if we had an item that cost $2.25 and we wanted to get a 40% margin on it, our formula would be 225 divided by 1 minus 0.40 would equal $3.75. So we would need to sell that $2.25 item for $3.75 to get a 40% profit margin. In Excel, we're going to write the formula as cost divided by 1 minus margin divided by 100. The reason that we're putting the divided by 100 in there is you'll notice up above in the formula example with the $2.25, we had 1 minus 0.40. Well, 0.40 is 40%. Most people, when you key it in to your calculators or you key it in to a spreadsheet and stuff, you don't key in 0.40, you key in 40. So by taking that 40 and dividing it by 100 in the math formula, we turn it into 0.40. The main reason to use margin instead of markup is margin gives you a direct line to your profit. Markup does not. And if you go up there, you remember that profit is profit margin. So we need to know that. It's not profit percentage, it's profit margin. And so if we're using margins to start with, then we know at the $2.25 item with a 40% margin, we're making 40%. We know that. It's right there. It's right in front of our face. Markup is the difference between the cost of a good or service and its selling price. Markup is simple to calculate and is why most beginners into business use it instead of margin. Now the formula for using markup is again fairly simple. It's just the cost plus the cost times the markup equals the selling price. So we got our same $2.25 item, and we're going to add that. We're going to take that. We're going to go 225 times 66.8%, and we're going to add that to the 220. The result of that to the 225, and it's going to come up with 375. So why are we using 66.8% here when we use 40% over in the margin? The reason I did this is you notice the selling price is the same, $3.75. I wanted to emphasize the difference in margin and markup. A 40% margin is equal to 66.8% markup. So if you wanted 100% markup on an item, you would use a 50% margin. Because these relationships are not in step, they're not linear between a markup percentage and a margin percentage, this is where you can go drastically wrong in knowing exactly what you're going to make, and you're going to consistently make a certain amount if you're using markup instead of margin. And you can go consistently wrong with it, because 100% markup, which a lot of people out there, they go, well, I'll mark up item, I'll mark it up 100%, or I'll mark it up 200%, or I'll mark it up 150%. Well, let me explain something to you. 150%, let's just say 150%. 150% markup on a $5 item does not get us the same profit margin as 150% markup on a $2.50 item. But if we're doing 150%, that would be a 60% margin. If we're doing a 150% markup, is like we did in this example, that'd be a 60% margin. So if I had a $5 item and I applied a 60% margin to it, I'm going to make 60% profit margin based off my cost in that formula we use over there. I'm still going to make 60% if I apply that same formula, exact same 60% to a $2 item. Markup, you're not going to have that. It's not going to come out the same margin, profit margin, by using that. So marking something up 150% and saying, well, yeah, I'm doing that, and that's the way it is. Your profit margin is not going to be the same across all the costs of the items. So as the cost of an item changes, the profit margin is going to change if you're using markup. So that's one reason it's not advisable to use it totally. Now, most of our software that we have out there uses markup, and the reason why is because that's what people understand. And some of our newer software that's going out and we're developing, we're actually putting the option to where you can select whether you want to calculate based on markup or margin. And the reason that most starting out use markup instead of margin is because markup is easily calculated on a standard calculator. I mean, it's right there. You just go you know, 225 plus 66.8%, and you got 375. It's simple. So it's a simple trap to fall into. It's a simple trap to fall into. Like I said, if you want to be consistent and always know you're going to get a certain profit margin, you want to use margins, not markups. All right, now we're into the spreadsheet. Like I told you earlier, it's a quick and dirty spreadsheet, really not intended to actually price charts. I guess you could use it, you know, to kind of get some ideas if you're just starting out, but it's mainly designed to show you how to use margin or markup and pricing, and to basically show you the differences between the two. So we're going to start here. We've got a shirt cost of $2, decoration cost of $25. So we have our $2.25 item that we had over there in the slides and the examples. We got our $2.25 item. We're doing our 40% margin, and we're doing the same with a markup. We're going to use 40% on both of them in this example. What it shows us is that using the margin at 40%, we should sell at $3.75. Again, what we saw in the slide. But using a 40% markup, we are only going to charge $3.15. That's a 60-cent difference. Now, one item maybe not be, but if you start adding that up over a lot of items, that's a big thing. And remember, I told you that the relationship between margin and markup were not linear. And what that means is as our item price changes, if we're using 40% margin or 40% markup, we're using the same, the differences between what we would sell that for grow exponentially. And so it's very important that you understand the difference between the two. So this is what I was trying to tell you. You know, you go out there, you say you're going to mark something up 100%. Well, 100% markup is not going to hold the same amount of margin, profit margin to you as the price or the cost changes. So we're going to take this right here and we're going to change it to 4.75, which should give us a $5 item. And we're going to see right now that the difference went from 60 cents to $1.33. We didn't change any of the percentages, anything else. All we did was change that cost. What that means is by using markup instead of margin, we just lost $1.33 just because the cost of the item went up. So this, we didn't lose anything on the margin. The sale price went up as it did on both of them, but it went up in exact relationship. So on the margin, we're still going to get 40% profit margin. We're going to get it every time if that's what we're figuring at 40%. So anyway, on this spreadsheet, you can enter anything in the powder blue area. The whites you can't enter in. There'll be a password down at the bottom. You can unprotect it. So I'm going to send it to you protected, or let you get it protected. That way you don't accidentally erase something out. But if we go look at the formulas in here, here is the formula. If we look up here at the top, this is the cost divided by 1 minus the margin divided by 100 gets us that. The other thing that we have down below, and of course there's the one for the markup. The other thing that we have down below is we have two deals where here we can set an example and show the actual differences out. There again, we're using we're using the same margin markups. These are like across different price breaks. So we're saying from 1 to 12, we want to get 50% margin. We'd sell it at $10. Okay. If we were just doing a 50% markup, we'd only get $7.50. So there again, markup and margin, totally different. To get the same amount in markup and margin, we're going to have to go to 100%. And then we're going to get our $10. But there again, as these go down, it's not going to work the same. Okay? So as we come down here, you know, if we did the 100% and 100, we're going to go 10, whatever else would be overpriced. So if we started backing them down, at what relationship would we back them down? So it's a little bit more complex to figure out markup and getting what you're going to do. The easiest way to always ensure that you're going to get the profit margin that you want is to use margins. Anyway, the spreadsheet, there's a link in the comments below. You can click on that. It's going to take you to another little web page. Out there you can go that link and take you to a web page where you can then get the information and request to be able to get this spreadsheet. So until part 2, thank you very much.